Okay then. Okay, we'll start. Let's move on. Okay, we'll move on. So actually in the last session, if I want to create any Hibernate application, so if I want to create any Hibernate application, so what are the files required? That is what we have discussed. Correct. So one is we need a Pojo class, and second one is we need a mapping file. Okay, and third one we need a configuration file. So in the last session, what we discussed is how do you write the mapping file. Actually, mapping file has some name, but extension of the mapping file is .hbm.xml. And what about the configuration file? Configuration file, I told you that you can write any name, but mostly we use the name as hibernate.cfg.xml. This is a Hibernate configuration file. The first one is a mapping file, second one is the configuration file. I told how many mapping files we can define in an Hibernate application. That all depends on the depends on your number of Pojo classes. For example, if you have a Pojo class, I mean, even we can call it as a Java Bean class, right? Because I told every Java Bean class can also be called as a Pojo class, correct? So how many mapping files we need? That depends on number of Pojo classes, correct? That depends on the number of Pojo classes. How many configuration files we can define in the project? That depends on the number of databases. Depends on number of the databases that our application is connecting. If our application is connecting with the two different databases, then how many configuration files I need to define? Two configuration files I need to define. Okay, so we know the Pojo class, and we know the mapping file, and we know the configuration file also in the last class. In the configuration file, I told you in the configuration file we can able to write the connection properties in that file, and along with the connection properties we can also define some Hibernate properties also there. Okay, I told you one property called dialect. Generally we add dialect is a mandatory property we have to add in the configuration file, right? And what is the other thing I told? If you want to look at the SQL queries which are prepared and executed by the Hibernate, then you can enable the property show SQL. And Hibernate will automatically generate the database tables for us. Hibernate will automatically create the table. Okay. So for that we have a property called hbm to ddl.auto. one property. That is also yesterday, I mean in the last class, I have given all these, the properties what we have discussed already in the last session, right? So to write the first example in Hibernate, next step is we have to write a client program. I'll tell you now, in the client program of Hibernate, what are the important objects required. Okay, what are the objects required in writing the client program? That is what today we are going to discuss first. So then we will discuss about writing the program. And when you are working with frameworks, so you must need a build tool. You must use a build tool. That build tool can be either Maven or Gradle. Okay, right? So majority, say 90% of our applications are Maven applications. So we are going to look with Maven only in our class. Okay. So first, what we would like to do is, today, we will understand about what are the important steps in writing the client application. These steps will also help you to understand next. From second example, we are going to use what? JPA. We are going to write our DAO classes with JPA API with Hibernate as the JPA provider. So what in the first example we will do? I just want to tell you that completely with the Hibernate API only we want to write the DAO class without using any JPA. But actually what you have to learn is use JPA in your DAO class with Hibernate as a JPA provider. What is the benefit of writing an application in that way? What is the use of writing my DAO classes with JPA and Hibernate combination? In future, correct? In future, what can I do? If I want to change my ORM tool, then I no need to modify my complete DAO classes in my project. My DAO classes remains constant. I no need to make any changes to my DAO's code. But where I need to make change? In my configuration file. In configuration file, I am configuring who is my JPA provider. For example, initially Hibernate. Tomorrow I want to change to what? MyBatis. For example, I want to change to Eclipse link. What are these MyBatis and Eclipse links? They are also the ORM tools. So how can I change easily from this ORM vendor to another ORM vendor? With the help of configuration file. With a little bit changes only I can able to do that. That is an advantage of working with the what? That is the advantage of working with the JPA specification. Correct? Guys, good. Are you understanding, guys? Reply C or N. Okay. Okay, guys. Today I will start telling about how do you write the client program. Thank you. Okay. Today we'll write important steps. I'll tell you. These steps, important steps, you remember. Anyhow, next what happens now? Instead of using this directly Hibernate API in my DAO classes, so from the next example, what we will perform? We will use a JPA specification. Na? Correct? So initially first 2-3 client programs like inserting an object, loading an object, updating an object, and deleting an object. Nothing but what operations will perform initially? CRUD operations we will perform using Hibernate. That's our first example. Then from the next example onwards, we will talk about using JPA to perform all these operations. And all the JPA concepts we will start. Are you getting my point? Very good. Nice. So coming to the client program today. Coming to client program in our session today. Guys, observe it. I would like to write the client program today. If I want to write a client program in Hibernate, First, I'll talk about what are the important objects. The very important object, we call it as high level object in Hibernate API. That is called session factory object. There is an object called session factory object. That is a high level object in what? Hibernate. In Hibernate, the high level object is what? Session factory object. Okay. Let's understand. Okay. Let's have a discussion on what really it is. Are you clear? So whenever the configuration file is loaded, in the configuration file, we will configure the connection properties of our application. Means what is the driver class application has to use, to which database it should connect, the database URL, the username and password to connect with the database. All these informations we are going to write into the Hibernate configuration file, correct? Next, what we write? Hibernate properties required for our application also we are writing there. Next, we write what? Mapping files also we are writing there. All these information, what information I can say? Connection properties, Hibernate properties, and mapping files. All these information will be loaded into, all this information will be loaded into one object. That is called a session factory object. What object? In Hibernate, there is a session factory object. Into the session factory object, the entire configuration metadata will be loaded. Entire configuration metadata will be loaded into the session factory object. So what is a high level object of Hibernate? Session factory object. Okay, right, I'll tell you. Now, directly application cannot perform the CRUD operations using session factory object. It cannot. I'm telling about what? It cannot perform the database operations directly with the session factory object. It can't do that. From session factory object, a session object is created. What is created? Session, one more object, session object. Yeah, I think you have an idea. I'm expecting that you have an idea on session earlier, maybe. Anybody type C or N or Y or N, yes or no? Okay, then no problem. I will tell you. I will tell you very clearly what is generally session object I'm talking about. Yeah. Okay, no issues, no worries. Yeah, observe here. So basically what I'm trying to say is, for example, I am a Gmail user, or say I'm a Facebook user, and you are also a Facebook user. And when you log in with your Facebook credentials, one session is created for you in the server. And when I log in with my credentials, for me, one more session is created. Got my point? Which is nothing but what every user to the server. Who is a server here? Facebook application running in the server. Now that is our server. So what is happening in the server? For every user, one session will be created, right? And whenever you log out of your Facebook account, your session will be closed. And when I log out, my session will be closed. But before I log out or before you log out, we are visiting multiple pages now. Some groups we are going to visit, correct? some pages we are going to visit, some comments we are writing, some likes we are doing, right? Or we are searching for something. These are all operations we are doing in Facebook now, right? So when you are visiting the next page like that by clicking the links and buttons, Facebook server will identify that you are the user. Means what? If you click the button or if you click the link, one more page is getting loaded now. Means what? One request goes to server and server will respond for your request and will give some page now. Yes. Means what? You are visiting multiple pages now. Correct. Yes, you are visiting multiple pages. When you are visiting these multiple pages in the server will identify that you are the user. You are logged in already. Means what? Your session will continue. Your username is there now. That username is known to the server. Okay. And if I am also visiting my pages simultaneously, then means you and me, we both are sitting in side by side systems. You logged in, I have logged in, you are visiting, I am visiting, like that. But I am not getting your name now on my screen. And you are not getting my name there. Okay. What's the reason? There is a session object created for every user, and that session will store your information. That session object will store your information. Correct? If I am visiting, it will store my information there in my session, and your session, somebody's session, like that. How many sessions are running in the server? Multiple. It depends on the number of users. Depends on number of the users. Okay, right? If there are 5,000 sessions are currently running in the server, what does it mean? There are 5,000 users are currently working with Facebook, currently logged in with Facebook. Right? The same thing will happen even in e-commerce applications also. Right? So you are doing online shopping. At the same time, I am also doing some online shopping. Right? But I am not getting your selected items. You are not getting my selected items. Am I right or not? So where my selected items are getting stored? To my cart. Add to my cart now. Add cart option, add cart button, or buy now we are getting now. Right. For your items you are storing in your cart. My items I am storing in my cart. Nothing but what is my cart here? What is your cart there? Your cart is nothing but your session object. My cart is nothing but my session object. So every user has a separate one session object, and that session object will store the user details, user data otherwise. Okay, user data. User details means not your email ID, not your age, your gender, not like that. Your data. What items you selected, how much quantity that you have selected, all these things. And my information will be stored, my data will be stored in my session object. You got the concept now? Means every user has a one session object. That session will be there for some time until you log out. Till you log out. Sometimes what we do, we will directly close the browser without logging out. Sometimes when we are in a hurry, what we do generally? Just simply we are going to click on the cross mark on the browser window, right? When you click on the cross mark on browser window, your session is not closed. Server is still waiting for you. How much it will wait? It depends on the configuration of the server application. Okay. It may be 10 minutes, it may be half an hour, it may be 1 hour. It will look for you for half an hour continuously. Or it look for you for 10 minutes, depends on the configuration of the server. What happens now if you are not going to server again for 10 minutes time? Continuously for 10 minutes, you are not sending any request. Then what server will say? Server will invalidate your session. Server will invalidate your session. This is what session tracking, session management you are learning in the advanced technology like servlet or GSP. Okay. Session concept is there. Session scope, session concept is there. Okay. Good to know. At least some idea you got, I feel. Correct? Huh? Type C or N. Okay. Make it fast, guys. Make it fast. Everybody, please sit and listen the session in online. Okay. Don't sleep on the bed and listen. I know, guys, okay? Because I can't see you now in online. I can't see you are not in front of me. But my request is, please sit and listen. Okay? Yeah. Don't, yeah. Okay. Right, yes. Very few people are responding, so I got it out. Just a minute. Yes, guys. Okay. Good. Coming to the Hibernate application. Okay, right? Coming to the Hibernate application, I'll tell you what are the. But one thing I want to tell you that whatever the session object I am speaking about now in Hibernate, it is no way related with a web application session. I'm talking about a database session. I'm talking about the database session. So far, I have explained about to understand session. I have took an example of web application, Facebook or Gmail or whatever, or Amazon. These are all what web. So I took the example of what web application. I'm talking about web application session. But generally in Hibernate also we have a session object. That is session object related to database. That is called database session. If a Hibernate want to execute any operations on the database like a CRUD operations or any queries, SQL queries or some other things, if it want to run anything on the database, Hibernate application need a session with the database. What is needed? Session needed. Most of our applications are server-side applications, na? Correct? What is our type of applications? All are server-side only. We are not writing any desktop applications. We are not writing any standalone applications, right? All our applications are server-side applications only. Are you getting my point, right? Very good. Earlier, what happened before Spring Boot? We create our application and we will deploy our application server. What is happening from Spring Boot? Our application only is a server. You're getting my point? Right. So basically all our applications are what applications only? Server applications only. Okay. Yes. Good. Coming to the important thing. What happens in server applications? Multiple users are making request. Users are multiple. Multiple users can send the request at a time simultaneously. I mean, at the same time, the people are sending the request now. At the same time, now, simultaneously, right? People are sending the request simultaneously. Very good. Good to know. So for each user, not user, for every request, better word. Whenever a user makes a request, any user, if 5 users are making request to server, then 5 sessions are created. How many? 5 sessions are created in the server for every request. If 5 users are sent request now, how many sessions created? 5 sessions are one request, one session. One request, one session. 5 requests, 5 sessions. 10 requests, 10 sessions. Like that. For every request, one session is created. Getting my point? To perform what? Operations on database. Okay. But to create these 5 sessions or 10 sessions or even one session, session factory object is required. What object is required? So session factory object can be used for creating sessions. How many sessions it can create? It depends on requirement. It can be one or it can be multiple. Who can, which object has that capability of creating the session object? Session factory. So who is a high level object finally? Who is a high level object then finally? Session factory. Session factory is for creating session objects. How many session objects are created? Depends on the number of requests. Depends on the number of requests. For one request, one session object is, because without a session object, Hibernate cannot perform any operation on database. To perform anything CRUD operation on database, one session with the database is required. Right? So what is the high level object finally? Session factory. First object, high level object. Okay, the main object. Next object is what? Session object. Next object is what? Session object. Now I will explain. Then I will write all the diagrammatic part like that. Okay, guys, observe here clearly. Hope you are getting my point. Correct? Observe here. So I told you two things so far. One is a session factory object and second one is the session object. Session object. Okay. I would like to once again explain you guys. In Hibernate, to perform insert, update or delete. Insert, update, delete. Three operations. Inserting, updating, deleting the objects. To perform these operations, a transaction must be created or must be started otherwise. Because inserting, updating, deleting, these three operations are called transactional operations. What operations we can call? Transactional operations. What are the transactional operations? Inserting, updating and deleting, not selecting. Selecting is not a transaction operation, because when you select the data from table, from the database table, it is not going to do any changes in the database table, right? Just you are getting the data available in the table. But what about inserting, updating and deleting? So whenever you are doing these operations, what is happening? There are some changes going to happen in the database table, right? Yes. So what are called transaction operations finally? Insert, update and delete, right? In Hibernate, a transaction object. What object? Transaction object is required to perform insert or update or delete operations on database. Got it now? Tell me once again what object is required? Transaction object is required. That a transaction can be started. That a transaction can be started through the session object. Through what object? Session object. So finally, these three are interlinked objects. First, what object I told? Session factory. Next object, session. Third object, transaction. Got my point? Okay. So if I want to create a transaction object in Hibernate, I need session object. If I want to create a session object, I need session factory object. And once you perform the CRUD operations, either inserting, updating, deleting, whatever, selecting also. But remember, selecting is not a transaction. Without a transaction also, without starting a transaction also, we can select the data from table, right? But because select is not a transactional operation. Okay. Once all these operations you did, okay, next what step is you have to commit the transaction. You have to commit. You have to commit the transaction. Because within transaction, the operations are executed temporarily on the database, not permanently. But when you can make them as permanent, whenever you commit. Whenever you commit. What happens in case if there is a problem occurred, issue occurred? For example, if there is a problem occurred, for example, if there is an issue occurred, then you can roll back the changes. You can roll back the changes. So how can I come to know whether I have some errors so that I can roll back? You can keep the code in core Java concept. You can keep the operations within within try block. Within try block. What happens in case if you have an exception? the control will jump to the nearest catch block. In that catch block, you can roll back. You can roll back. You can find the reason and you can roll back it. You can roll back the changes in the catch block. If no exceptions occur, then you can commit. So you have to commit or roll back the transaction. That's the next step. And once you did operations, this session is not required. Na? What is the use of the session? To create the transaction. Already transaction is committed. Committed means completed. Are you getting my point? Transaction committed meaning completed. Na? If a transaction is completed, completed means two things. Committing is a completion. Rollback is also completion. Commit means what? Completed successfully. Rollback means what? Completed unsuccessfully. But finally, committing, rollback both comes under what? Correct? You're getting my point? Committing and rollback both are comes under completion only. Once a transaction is completed, then no need of session. Na? Then what can I do? Session closed. If no more sessions are required, even I can close the session factory. So tell me, what are the objects now? What are the objects I told you? Right? What are the steps you remembered? Try to put them on. Guys, write in the chat box. You write in the chat box. What are the steps you remember? Just write them. That's what I want. I am not writing anything on the screen. I am asking you to write. You will only look at my paint screen. That's it. I am not writing anything. I have not written anything so far. Only 1, 2, 3, 4 points are written. After that, only I have explained, but I have not written anything on the screen. So you can able to see only that empty screen. I'm asking you people to remember and write the steps. Whatever the steps I told you and what you remembered in that, write in the chat box. All the steps send in a one single chat message so that I can able to see your steps. Okay. All the steps write in a single chat message. Right. So here I am writing now. I am writing about steps to write the client program. Okay, these steps will also help you in writing JPA application. So what are the steps to write the client program? First one, create a session factory object. Actually, session factory is an interface. All these are interfaces, whatever we are using. First step is create session factory object. Second one is create a session object. Third one is create a transaction object. So fourth step is perform the CRUD operations. Fifth step is commit or roll back the transaction. Fifth step, that is. Sixth step is close the session. And seventh step is close the session factory. Remember, if it is a server-side application, then we don't close session factory because we need sessions continuously. If it is a standalone application, like we are practicing in our class entirely with the standalone application only, na? So at that time, we are going to close session factory in every example. But in server-side application, we don't close the session factory because sessions are continuously required because server will get the request continuously. So there is no need to close session factory in the real-time application. But for practicing, when you are creating core Java or the standalone application, so we need to close the session factory. So these are the steps to write the client program. First, create session factory. Second, create session object. Third, create a transaction object. And fourth one is perform CRUD operations, commit or roll back the transaction, close the session, and close the session factory. These are the steps to write the client program. Okay. Right. Just I want to give you some points here because I have explained, but I haven't given any points. I will write. Okay. So basically, what's the high level object here? So high level object, I'm writing here some points. High level object in Hibernate is what object? Session factory object. I repeat once again. Okay. High level object in Hibernate is session factory object. Session factory object holds the configuration metadata. Configuration metadata. Metadata meaning data about data. Whatever you written in XML. Okay, metadata we will write in XML file. Right? In XML file, whatever we write is called metadata. Okay, metadata. So configuration object, session factory object holds the configuration metadata. And you know, session factory object is a factory for creating session objects. Session object. Okay, now some points I'm writing here. Okay, and the next one more point I would like to tell you that. So in Hibernate, a session represents a database connection. What it represents? Database connection. Means what? Whenever a session is created, what does it mean? A connection with the database is established. When connection with the database, whenever session is created. Okay, na? Right. So what I want to say, guys, when a session is created, what happens when a session is created? When a session is created, a connection with a database is created or is established. Next, a session object is the main runtime object to perform CRUD operations or to perform database operations. Just I'm writing some points, okay? Database operations. Next, what is another point I would like to tell is, these are all okay. Next point I like to tell. Okay, or the next point I would like to tell is, okay, session object is a main runtime object to perform database operations. Okay, and how many sessions are required generally in real-time applications? Okay, a session object is created for each request. So this is also an important point, guys. In real-time applications, what a session object is created for each request. For each request, one session object is created. Okay. Next, coming to transaction object. Okay. So a session object can be used to create a transaction object in Hibernate. Transaction object in Hibernate. First learn some Hibernate things. Next we'll go for JPA. Similar concepts are there even in JPA also. So a session object can be used to create a transaction object. Okay. So in Hibernate, okay, transaction is mandatory to perform insert, update, delete operations. To perform insert or update or delete operations. Okay, na? Remember this point, guys. In a Hibernate, transaction object is mandatory to perform insert, update, delete operations. For select operation, it is optional. It is optional. You got it, right? For select operation, it is optional. That is the transaction related. So once operations are completed, you have to commit or roll back the changes. Correct? Okay. End the transaction. With the commit or rollback. Okay. If no more transactions are required or no more operations are required. If no more operations are required, what to do? If no more operations are required, then what to do? Yeah, then close the session. If no more sessions are required, then close the session factory object. Then close the session factory object. That's all. You are getting my point? Like this, I have given some points here which are important ones. I'll give now the same points in the form of a diagram. Okay. First steps are 7. You got the 7 steps here. 1 to 7. And these are the steps to write the client program in Hibernate. Almost the same steps are required even in JPA also, because most of the JPA specification is developed through Hibernate only. Means many concepts of Hibernate are taken up and Sun Microsystems created JPA specification. Of course, mainly 80% of JPA is Hibernate only. Okay, right? So that's the reason why almost same steps you can find out even when you're working with a JPA also. With some changes are there, but 80% looks like same. Okay, right? So when coming to objects wise, when I'm talking about objects wise, so these are the steps I told you. Okay. So what is a high level object in Hibernate is session factory. What is a low level object? Low level means next level objects, session object, then transaction object. Mainly three objects required. What are the three? One is the session factory object. Next one is the session object. Next one is the transaction object. Now, guys, what we will like to discuss, I'll tell you. Just I want to give like in the form of a diagram, right? Let's look at about it. Let's look at about it. Okay, I have given some steps. Now, if you read the steps, you'll understand what is the difference between session factory and session object. Okay, right. So next, these are all okay. Next one, if I talk about a kind of diagram, if I go for a kind of a diagram, 1 minute. Yeah, if I go for a kind of a diagram, the diagram is going to look like this. First, initially, what we need a session factory object. That's a main object now. For creating session factory object, also some objects are required that I'll tell you. A service registry object and a metadata object is required so that we can create the session factory object. But main object is what? Session factory. So that's the reason why I'm just talking about that one only. So first what I'm talking here, I'm talking about first initially what object is required? Session factory object is required. This is a session factory object. Observe here, this is a session factory object. Good. First what object is required then? Session factory object is required, obviously. Obviously, session factory object is required. Okay. Then tell me, after session factory object, what I told you next, what object is required? Session object is required. After the session factory object, next what object is required? Session object is required, so that you will understand the diagram in a better way. Then next one, session object is required. Say for example, this is a session object. Correct? Session object is required. Tell me now, after the session object, next what object is required? Transaction object is required, obviously. Next what? Transaction object is required. Next what? Transaction object is required. So once a transaction object is created, next what? Next step is operations. What operations can be performed on the database? The CRUD operations can be performed simply. Next, you perform the CRUD operations. So let me give you in the form of a diagram. Perform the CRUD operations. Okay. Done. Okay, done. So first perform the CRUD operations. Once after CRUD operations are done, what's the next step to do? What's the next step after this? We need to either commit or roll back the transaction. Commit or roll back the transaction. I say commit or roll back the transaction. So once a transaction is going to be committed or roll back, this is what? Commit or roll back the transaction. Either commit or roll back the transaction. Commit or roll back the transaction. Then what next after this? Once it is done, you need to close the objects. What objects I need to close? first session object, because without closing session object, we cannot close the session factory object, because sessions are created through session factory only, na? So first what I need to do then, guys, I need to close the, yes, I need to close the session object first. Yes. Listen, I need to close the what object, guys? Yes, please. What I need to close once again, tell me. I need to close the, yes. Yes, I need to close the session object. So once you close the session object, now lastly, what I need to do, close the session factory. That's it. These are the steps. Enough, done. Just remember, in a same steps, just I'm giving like a diagrammatic format. Then you need to close the session factory. Close the session factory. Okay, close session factory object. So these are the steps required to create what application, then finally Hibernate application. Ready. You got the steps now. In programming, you get more details. Currently, we are working with session factory object. Na? In JPA, we work with entity manager factory. What is it? Right. Here we are working with the session object. Na? In JPA, we have equivalent of entity manager. What is it? Entity manager. So entity manager factory, entity manager equal to session factory and session. That's the reason why if you know Hibernate, at least one application, then you can write JPA application very easily. That's the reason why we started like this. Okay, no problem. Nice, no worries. Coming to the point. We want to write our application using Hibernate and using Eclipse. Means what is our IDE? Eclipse we use for all our applications. And using Maven as a build tool, right? So you are aware of having an idea on Maven, right? No? Type Y or N. Yeah, only 3 people said Y, remaining all said N. Okay. Sure. I'll give. Okay, we will do one thing. We will follow. It will help in both people you know, or if you don't know, it will help you. I'll tell you now. Observe here. Yes. See guys, everything. Okay, no problem. I'll talk. If I want to create any Hibernate application, or generally, if you want to work with Hibernate application, or if you want to work with the Spring application or Spring Boot microservice, without a builder tool, it is difficult. And of course, you cannot create any Spring Boot microservice applications without using build tool. That's mandatory, compulsory. We can create Hibernate application without using build tool also. Means without using Maven also, we can create Hibernate application. We can create Spring application also without using Maven. But we cannot create a Spring Boot application or microservice application without using build tool, either Maven or Gradle, any one of the two. Okay. But anyhow, what we will like to do is, I want to give you some idea on Maven. We'll try working with Maven from now itself, because framework applications we can develop in more better way with the build tool only. Okay. So coming to Maven, we call generally Maven as a build tool. I'm just only giving an idea. It's not the complete Maven session. I repeat once again, it is not the complete Maven session. Just I'm giving an idea. Later, at the time when you're learning Maven completely, you will come to know very clearly. But currently, you can understand for developing our application. Okay. So I'm talking about some information about Maven. I'm talking about some information about Maven. That's all. Guys, I would like to explain some information about Maven. Let us start. Basically, Maven is called a build tool from Apache. Earlier to Maven, there was a tool called ANT, A-N-T, which stands for another neat tool. So that is outdated. Next, we got Maven, which is more popular. And based on Maven, another tool also given by Apache only, that is called Gradle. Main intention is, if you don't want completely XML in your project, you don't want to see .xml first of all. If you are hating XML, then you can go for Gradle. Okay. If you have, at least if you are showing some kindness and love on XML, you can go for Maven. Right? Maven is a build tool. Gradle is also build tool. Ant is also build tool. These are all called build tools. B-U-I-L-D, build tools. Means they will help us to build our application. That means they are ready to compile our source code by adding all the required jar files in the class path of the project. They are ready to compile and test our test cases. If you write any test cases using JUnit. Okay. And they are ready to build our application into jar file or var file of the project based on the type of the file you want. That's called packaging the project. And they're ready to deploy. They're ready to deploy this created jar file or var file onto your recommended server. Who is ready to do automatically all these things? Build tool is ready. What is it? Build tool. And what build tool says, you just tell me which version of the jar files you want to use for your project. Suppose I'm using Hibernate. Which version of Hibernate you want to use? Then what build tool is saying, you tell me that. You tell me just what is the main jar file of your application. I will take care of everything. Nothing but it will take care of downloading them. It will take care of downloading them. And it will take care of using them even for the further projects also. Who will take care of these things? Build tools. And that is called Maven. Means what Maven can do now? Maven is a build tool which can automate the build process of a Java application. It can automate the build process of a Java application. Who will do? Build tool will do. Who is our build tool? Maven. Okay, right? One more thing. I just want to tell you some idea, little bit idea first. I'm not talking about elaborately Maven, at least some idea. Suppose you have a project you created today in Eclipse. Today you created it in Eclipse. But tomorrow, due to some issue, you want to use NetBeans IDE. Means not Eclipse, NetBeans. But your project you have started in Eclipse, right? But tomorrow there is some issue happened with Eclipse. Now you want to continue with NetBeans. And thing is, if I open this project in NetBeans IDE, project structure what I have seen in Eclipse, the same thing will not appear for me in NetBeans because both are different IDEs now. They follow different project structure now. Every ID will follow their own project structure that we cannot question. Am I right or not? Getting my point? Right. Point is what here? I cannot able to see the project structure as it is because ID is a different ID. Na? Project structure will also be different. If the project structure is different, it will take some time for me to search for where is my file. If it is a very big application, it will take some time. I'm not comfortable because till last day, I'm perfect with Eclipse. But due to some issue, today I would like to shift to NetBeans. What happened? I can't able to see the same structure there. It's going to look me inconvenient. Able to follow me then? Right. So to even create the common project structure. Common structure means what? Irrespective of your ID. Means your ID is Eclipse you are working, or NetBeans you are working, or IntelliJ you are working. It doesn't matter. But I would like to have my project structure remains same. ID may be different ID, but I would like to have same project structure in all IDs. So that what happens, I can easily open up my project in any IDE, but I will get the same structure again. Na? Yes. So that can be possible by using build tool. Means if I create a Maven project, my project structure remains same in all the IDs. Got my point? So like this, we have, it will create some side documentation, blah, blah, blah. It will take care of content management and all. That is not required here. But basically, Maven is for that purpose. Means what Maven can do? Maven is basically, I'm repeating only some information I'm talking. I'm not talking about completely Maven. So what is the some information? Maven is actually what? Maven is a build tool from Apache. Maven is a build tool from what? Apache. And what is the purpose of Maven? What's the purpose of Maven? It will automate. It will automate the build process. Getting my point? What is that, guys? Maven is a build tool from Apache. It will automate the build process of a Java application. Okay, you may have a doubt here. Sir, what is build process? Build process means, okay, creating the project structure. Okay, creating the project structure. Okay, adding the jars to class path, project class path, compiling the source code, compiling and executing the test cases. Okay, compiling and executing the test cases, packaging the project to a jar or var file, blah, blah, blah. These are all called what? This is called build process. Who will take care of this build process? Maven. So Maven, we call it as a build tool, right? What is the other build tool also there? Gradle. Okay, Maven we are looking for. Okay, now I'm coming to the point. Okay, right. Coming to the point now. The other point I would like to explain. Okay, the other point I like to explain. So if you are working with ID, already IDs are integrated with Maven. Means what? You no need to separately download and install the Maven tool. If you are working with Eclipse, if you are working with STS, if you are working with IntelliJ, if you are working with NetBeans, already they have built-in Maven plugin. Means they have already added with Maven support. Maven support is there in all Java IDs almost. We can able to create the project. We can able to even run the application also in IDE. But the recommended way is generally we don't run our Maven project in IDE only. We write the code in IDE. Maven project we create in IDE, we'll write the code, but we will run the project from command prompt. Maven project will run from command prompt. Okay. So for that, what to do? If I want to run with Maven commands, Maven having some commands, I'll tell you. If I want to work with Maven commands, what I have to do is, first I need to download the Maven zip file into my system software. After that, I need to extract the zip file. Then I need to add the bin folder in Maven to the class path. Now let us see what I'm doing here, right? So means how can I work with the Maven now? First, you need to download the zip file. Maven.apache.org is a website. Observe here. Visit maven.apache.org and download the zip file. Look at what I am doing here. What I will do? maven.apache.org. Now you got the Apache Maven project now. Very good. In this Apache Maven project, you are finding left side a link called download now. Click on download. You got some system requirements. Okay. What is Maven 3.9 version requires JDK 8 or above to execute. Okay. And those things we have to read also. Now there is a zip file, na binary zip file is there, na download it. Now we can see one zip file is getting downloaded here. Yes, one zip file is downloaded. You can able to see the zip file downloaded here. It's going to complete. We'll wait for a second. Done. Now it is completed. Now download is completed. Show all. Now the zip file is downloaded now. Yes. What I need to do now? Extract it. Okay. I will like to extract into my downloads only. Now once it is extracted, you can able to see one Apache Maven folder now. Inside this Maven folder, you can able to see called bin folder, right? What you do now? Copy the location of bin folder in Maven. Add it to whom? Environment variable. Path variable is there na? You know Java path setting. If you know Java path setting, or then you can understand it easily. So edit the system environment variable option is coming now. Now in this, I need to click on environment variables here. Then I need to go for path. You can see the variable name path here. Correct? Then click on edit button. Click on new button. Paste it. You already copied the location now. Paste it. That's it. Just paste it. Say OK. Done. Close. We can close all these things now. Correct? OK. Close it. Go to command prompt. Now open the command prompt. After setting, then start the command prompt. In the command prompt, what I have to do now, just no need of typing any cd/. Maybe you feel that it's one more step. I'll open the command prompt directly. In the command prompt, what you should type now? MVN. MVN command means Maven. MVN -- version. Enter. You get some information here. You got the information here. Apache Maven 390. You got something now? Yes, this is the Maven home. This is a Java version I am using. Default local is EN. Local means language and country code. OS Windows 11 version so and so. Architecture AMD 64. Blah blah blah. We are getting now, right? So if you get this information, nothing but what your Maven is said properly. Okay. Can you tell me now what I did actually? I'll write here. Okay. After visiting, download the zip file. Download it. After that, what to do? Obviously, extract the downloaded file. Then tell me again what to do after this, after extracting. After that, what I did actually? Copy the bin path. Okay. Copy the bin folder path in Maven or of Maven, anything. Copy the bin folder path of Maven and add it to the path variable. Add it to the path variable. Path variable is a system variable now. Very good. Tell me once it is completed, what is the next step I did, you know? Verify the Maven setting. How to verify the setting? Open command prompt. Open command prompt. Okay, and run. What's the command? mbn hyphen hyphen. Okay, I'll say and execute the command. And execute the command. What's the command you have to execute? mbn hyphen hyphen version. Space is there in the middle. mbn space double hyphen version. Okay, you all do these things today so that we will start writing the first Hibernate application in the next session. Everyone? Okay. Yeah, guys. Okay. Yeah, that's it for the session today. That's it for the session today. And okay, I'll upload this document to you and last document also. The two documents I'll upload now just in 2 minutes. Next, we will continue our further session on day after tomorrow. That is on Thursday. We have no session tomorrow. I'm not available even for tomorrow also. I think I've already informed. Otherwise, I'm informing you again that we have no session even tomorrow, but we have session on Thursday. We'll have the regular sessions again from Thursday onwards. Okay, right. I'm a bit busy. Tomorrow is my